Everybody about ready to start? Yep. Peter, you okay? Ready? I'm good. Yes. You guys ready? Yep. Okay. All right. The November 13, 2019 Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners is now convened. Pam, would you please call the roll?
We're getting feedback.
Commissioner Platt?
Here.
Commissioner Gambetti?
Here.
Chair Cruz?
Here.
Commissioner Moreland Capuya? Commissioner Myers?
Here.
Chair Cruz?
Thank you. All right. Commissioner reports. Would anybody like to start with commissioner reports?
Sure. Last night I attended and spoke at the Hacienda's annual fundraising gala at the Hilton. I had 600 people in attendance with guest speaker Dolores Huerta, an icon in the labor movement and in organizing statewide. Really inspiring, great event. Next time, you're all invited.
Excellent, thank you.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Myers?
Also nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. All right, I had the usual run of meetings, but nothing particular to report. Thank you. All right, Executive Director report. Lisa Boif is sitting in for Kimberly Branham today.
Good evening, Chair Cruz and Commissioners. I am here on behalf of Kimberly Branham, who's with her family after an unexpected death of her mother, Ann Schneider, and she asked me to express her deep appreciation to the board, to her colleagues, and to community partners who have reached out to her with support in this difficult time, as well as for her family. She wanted me to share that tonight's board meeting location is particularly meaningful for her family, as Ann Schneider actually began her career focused on supporting immigrants and refugees at IRCO. And then I did want to transition on and just share a few highlights of recent events and staff activities. Folks have been active at Prosper Portland, so there's a list that I'd like to share. On Tuesday, November 5th, Tori Campbell spoke at the ribbon cutting event for the Alberta Commons, or at the Alberta Heritage Markers. Tori joined State Senator Lou Frederick, Alberta Main Street, and other community members to celebrate the unofficial unveiling of the markers on Alberta. The 7 markers were designed by Portland artists Cleo Davis and Kayeen Talton Davis. The markers include art, photographs, and text depicting accomplishments of African Americans from Alberta Main Street, as well as the broader Northeast Portland community. Prosper Portland provided a community livability grant funding for the markers and wanted to acknowledge everyone involved in this effort, particularly Damian Crowder, as well as Ann Mangan and Lisa Norwood, who were involved with both the installation and design of the markers, and invite everyone to visit Alberta Street between Northeast 24th and 14th Avenues to experience the markers firsthand. Then on Thursday, November 7th, the City of Portland's Office of Government Relations presented the 2nd annual City of Portland Tribal Nations Summit. The summit welcomed tribal officials from around the Northwest, including delegates from the Cowlitz, the Grand Ronde, the Nez Perce, the Siletz, the Umatilla, Warm Springs, and Yakima nations. And we had the opportunity to discuss collaboration opportunities and other ways to both strengthen our government-to-government relations, as well as to think differently about our work. More than a dozen Prosper Portland staffers participated in that day-long learning event, and particularly want to acknowledge Court Morse, as well as Justin Douglas, who were involved in leading our involvement in that event. On November 7th, Chair Cruz also attended the Earl Blumenauer Bicycle and Pedestrian Bridge groundbreaking, he was joined by Congressman Blumenauer, as well as Commissioner Udaly and the PBOT Director, Chris Warner, and others to commemorate an important new bridge over I-84. The bridge will provide critical connections for both bicycles and pedestrians between 2 of the fastest growing both residential and job centers for the City of Portland. Then on Friday, November 8th, and this past Saturday, November 9th, we celebrated our 5th edition of the My People's Market. It was hosted at Self Enhancement Inc. and once again featured more than 100 local multicultural businesses. I had a chance to attend with my daughter, and we enjoyed a lot of the baked goods and sweets and a lot of sugar that was offered, as well as some of the delicious food that was provided by some of the local vendors. And we wanted to particularly acknowledge Amanda Park and Tori Campbell for leading this work on behalf of Prosper Portland, as well as our partners at Travel Portland. And then recognize the title sponsor, New Seasons Market. If you're interested in any future events or some of the businesses that were showcased at My People's Market, there you can visit mypeoplesmarket.com for more information. We also wanted to notify of some upcoming events. The Portland office will be awarding a total of $20,000 to 4 local filmmakers as recipients of the Portland Post-Production Grant Program. These grants are made in partnership with the Oregon Made Creative Foundation, and it's now in its second year, selecting the awardees from a pool of over 27 applicants. So congratulations to those 4 local filmmakers. The grant program supports the professional development of local filmmakers by providing funds for activities such as sound, picture editing, color matching, color grading, etc. And we would encourage you to visit OregonConfluence.com to learn more about the 4 awardees. And we wanted to particularly thank Brian Lord, who has been central to this work. And then tomorrow, Thursday, November 14th, Dr. Moreland Capuya will join leadership from PBOT, OHSU, and Business Oregon for the celebration of the Southwest Bond Avenue ribbon cutting. This project features a new road and multi-use path that will serve the growing OHSU Schnitzer campus, that includes the new night cancer research building and support a lot of the staff as well as researchers and visitors to that campus. Prosper Portland provided more than $4 million from the North Macadam TIF district for the project, and both of our prime contractors were able to exceed program goals for 30% of minority participation. And one of our prime contractors actually quadrupled the participation of women on the job compared to our 9% goal. With the opening of this project, pedestrians will now be able to walk along the west side of the Willamette River. This is exciting for anybody who takes walks at Tillicum Bridge. You will now be able to access the road that has been gated to date. Tomorrow, on behalf of Kimberly, I will also be providing 2 presentations, one to the Commercial Real Estate Women's Lunch Program, which will cover Broadway Corridor Project, which you'll hear a little bit about tonight. And then in the afternoon, we were invited by Perkins & Company, who is hosting a real estate connection program that will focus on the Central East Side and some of the real estate and kind of business changes that we've seen there. And then on Thursday, November 20th, Prosper Portland, Multnomah County, and Energy Trust of Oregon will be presenting a developer forum to share a little bit about the work that we have been doing with Property Fit, and the forum presents an opportunity for Portland's real estate development community to learn more about that unique financial product, which funds redevelopment or new construction, and the funding is tied to energy efficiency, water conservation, renewable energy, and seismic upgrade improvements that are occurring as part of those projects. And if you're interested in more about that, please visit prosperportland.us/events for more information, or if there are folks out in the community who are interested in registering. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. It's a great report. All right, next we have meeting minutes for our meeting of October 9th. Would someone like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
So move.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Meetings are approved. All right, do we have any public comment for items that are not on the agenda? No, okay. All right, next up, we have a consent agenda item. This is item number 6. It's an action item accepting a $500,000 brownfields cleanup grant from the Environmental Protection Agency for the U.S. Postal Service site. This is resolution number 7346. Any discussion? Would someone like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item passes unanimously. All right, so now we are going to do a parliamentary maneuver, and we will convene the local contract review board. So the meeting of the Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners is now adjourned. The members of the Prosper Portland Board will now meet as the agency's local contract review board to consider the next item on the agenda, which has been moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. All right. So Sarah Harpole, could you please join us?
Good evening. I'm Sarah Harple in Prosper Portland's Development and Investment Department. I'm here today to present a resolution which would adopt findings necessary to exempt certain scopes of work from a low bid process and instead pursue a competitive qualifications-based process. This work includes demolition of structures on the post office property, as well as hazardous materials abatement and remediation of some hotspot soils in the surrounding area. The findings that were provided with the staff report and resolution demonstrate that pursuing an alternative qualifications-based competitive process would not diminish competition and could result in substantial cost savings for the agency. We are recommending this approach due to the complexity of work, including multiple scopes of work or on-site activities, as well as the adjacent post office operations, and risk and cost to the agency if this work does not proceed in a timely manner. I do want to note we provided an updated resolution from what was previously provided to indicate that we did receive some public testimony at a hearing earlier today on the findings for this work. The Healthy Communities Coalition indicated that they are supportive of the findings and pursuing an alternative contracting process. They also use the opportunity to provide additional feedback on some of the content that they would like to see in those solicitations, and Justin has emailed you a summary of those comments. We've also received written testimony, which we will also be forwarding to you. We're seeking exemption on two separate scopes of work and two separate solicitations that would go out hopefully later this month. The first is for abatement and demolition of the main processing and distribution building, the main post office building you see in the diagram here, including removal of associated utility infrastructure. This would include the electrical transformer building as well as on-site wet utility infrastructure. The second scope of work would include abatement and demolition of the vehicle maintenance facility, which is on the northern boundary of the site, as well as some soils remediation work in adjacent areas, which would be funded in part by the grant the Prosper Portland Board just accepted on the consent agenda. This work, as I mentioned, would require coordination between the various contracting teams as well as with the adjacent post office retail function, and so having the CMGC involved early in the design process to think through the coordination, staging, and logistics of that work to ensure safety and coordination across the scopes is one of the primary reasons why we're pursuing this exemption. This work is necessary to unlock the first phase of development on the site. So what you see in kind of the bluish gray area is what we anticipate to be the first phase of development. This is supported by two extensions of streets through the site, both Northwest Johnson and Northwest Kearney, as well as the utilities within these streets. That work would commence immediately upon demolition or even partial demolition of the main building in order to meet development timelines. We have, over the past months and more recently, in the last few weeks, been engaging with the Healthy Communities Coalition on the negotiation of a community benefits agreement, as well as reaching out to NAMAC Oregon and PDBG on how to accomplish some of our contracting and community benefit goals within the scopes of work. And some of the feedback that we've received that is informing the approaches are noted here, including how we've packaged and the intent of separating these into two separate solicitations. Being mindful of advance notice and including outreach at various meetings to give folks a heads up when these solicitations are coming, as well as communication while they're out on the street. And then allowing adequate timing for a response to the solicitations, knowing that there are multiple proposals that folks will potentially want to respond to. And then holding a mandatory pre-proposal meeting so everyone knows other parties who are interested in the scope of work, and encouraging meet and greets and partnerships amongst firms to help meet some of our contracting goals. And then noting that while we are in negotiations of community benefits agreement, we do not yet have specific terms associated with that, but giving the proposers an indication that we expect those would be forthcoming, and inquiring about their experience or their commitment to working under a workforce agreement. This is unfortunately very hard to read on the screen, but I also did want to highlight kind of the timing of the work. And so in the light gray, which is not visible here, would indicate that we are going through the solicitation, selecting, and contracting process into the first of the year to select the two CMGCs for the separate scopes of work. The main post office building demolition design process would take approximately about a year, and we would come back to the board for approval of a separate CMGC contract with a guaranteed maximum price. So that does allow some time for the community benefits negotiations to occur and for those requirements to be bedded into that contract. And then that demolition would commence, wrapping up in mid-2022. The VMF timeline is shorter in duration, but does still allow some additional time for the community benefits agreement requirements to be implemented into that work. Again, selection would occur in early 2022, a few months of design process and negotiation of a guaranteed maximum price, and then demolition soils remediation lasting a couple months. You can see it green at the top is our timeline for the various agreements, including the community benefits agreement. So we are hoping to reach a term sheet level of agreement on the community benefits agreement in the February or March timeframe. That would give us the information necessary to insert those into those future contracts, and then spend a few months to actually finalize those full legal agreements. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions or comments? No? All right. Did we have public testimony? No? Okay. All right then. We'll just go ahead and vote. Okay. So I would accept a motion to approve resolution number 7345.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second?
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. The Prosper Portland Local Contract Review Board is now adjourned. The Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners meeting is now reconvened. Thank you. All right, so now we're on to item 8, I believe. Actually, I think that should be 7. But it's item 8. And this is the update on workforce development services. Amy Fleck-Rossetti will be joining us. And Stacy Triplett. Thank you for coming and welcome.
Good evening, Chair Cruz, Commissioners, and Director Obwoff. My name is Amy Fleck-Rossetti, and I'm here tonight with Stacy Triplett from Work Systems, who's joining us for the presentation. We are excited to be at ERCO this evening to provide our update on workforce development programs and investments. ERCO is a key partner in delivering workforce development services for the 3 programs that we are highlighting this evening. And I'd like to take a moment to recognize both the work system staff and the career coaches that help support this work and their dedication to implementing these programs. In July, the board approved a term sheet which authorized approval of the contract between Prosper Portland and Work Systems to implement this work, which includes funding for the city's youth and adult workforce development programs as a component of the Economic Opportunity Initiative. The Economic Opportunity Initiative was established in 2004 by the former Bureau of Housing and Community Development, and its purpose was to increase economic vitality to low-income individuals through workforce development and micro-enterprise development. Prosper Portland manages the micro-enterprise component of the Economic Opportunity Initiative through our Inclusive Business Resource Network, which you will also hear more about this evening. The workforce development components of this initiative are administered through Work Systems via our contract. And we expect to also administer the Community Opportunities and Enhancements Program funding with a similar coordinated approach once that intergovernmental agreement between Prosper Portland and OMF is approved. The city's co-investment in workforce development initiatives includes more than $3.1 million of general fund, enterprise zone resources, and community development block grant funding. This work advances 3 of Prosper Portland's strategic objectives: jobs, neighborhoods, and partnerships. We are investing in a system that provides career track job training or job placement. Within the system, we have created programs that support people in neighborhoods, prioritizing underserved populations in the city of Portland, including our neighborhood prosperity network districts. And all of this couldn't happen without our strong partnership between Prosper Portland and Work Systems. And Stacy Triplett will now provide an overview of the programs funded through our contract and the program outcomes for fiscal year 18-19.
Thank you very much. Oops. Thank you. Chair Cruz and Commissioners, thank you very much for having me here today. I'd like to remind you of the overall program design and accomplishments, talk a little bit about budgets, and then finally talk about leverage provided and get into some support services details. Prosper Portland, we've already talked about the funding. It's $3.1 million from Prosper, and that serves 2,400 people in the last program year, including the Neighborhood Prosperity Zone Navigator program that we'll talk some about. Those are all Portlanders being served. There are 3 programs that we're going to be focusing on. I like that my first slide is jobs, because some of the people you might have heard from are at their jobs right now, so we'll see if they make it here. The population served are low-income Portland residents, and the funding from Prosper Portland supports youth and adult career coaching, as well as drop-in local connection services provided by the Neighborhood Prosperity Initiative Navigators. They're provided by a network of community-based providers, as we talked about, and the program design ties the strength of the community-based organizations with the strength and resources of the public workforce system. The service providers on the adult side provide individualized, strength-based, one-on-one career coaching services leading to career track employment, as you've heard, in multiple industries leading to middle-wage jobs. The list of community-affirming service providers that you have here have deep ties to the customers they serve, as you'll get a chance to hear hopefully in the testimony or perhaps from the career coaches. We'll see. Our network is skilled at connection with low-income Portlanders in need of opportunity. Taken together, it's broad. The network is broad, and it specializes in English language learners, justice-involved customers, immigrants and refugees bringing professional backgrounds from other countries, culturally responsive programming for communities of color, houseless and housing insecure customers are served under this program, and people without a high school diploma or GED. The EOP and Next Gen programs have anchored Work Systems' success in attracting millions of dollars in leveraged resources. Those sources are some competitive grants, but other sources from the Department of Labor and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the SNAP 50/50 program, which returns federal funds to this community, targeted for supporting those who need it most. We have had a very successful program year that closed in July. So these accomplishments that you see are delivered by fidelity to the program design of both intensive services that work with customers and then retention and advancement, a kind of two-phased approach to coaching. The first stage includes stabilization, career and resource mapping, exploration activities, job readiness activities, including paid work experience and occupational training. So lots of different things are taking place. In the second phase, which is retention and advancement, ongoing assertive engagement by the career coach of up to even 3 years in time. Typically, customers are adjusting to new jobs during this period. They may need help with the benefits cliff that they might be falling over if they were public benefits recipients, or navigating other sorts of work relationships, including how to advocate for promotions or other sorts of advancements. You can imagine this is not entirely linear work. I'm making it sound very simple, in, out, first, second. Doesn't really work like that all the time. In all of this, the role of WorkSource Portland Metro is key. Setting aside funds for training, advising on training providers beyond the Prosper Portland funded industry-specific vocational training providers. IRCO is one of those in the healthcare field, as well as Oregon Tradeswomen and Constructing Hope in the pre-apprenticeship programs. Also, various workshops are provided at WorkSource Portland Metro, and funded internships were accessed by customers last year. The wages reported here at $16.96 an hour are almost 13% more than last year's level of $15.04 an hour. That's most likely due to customers participating more in construction and healthcare fields, as well as the rising minimum wage. So we're excited to see that. Moving on to the Neighborhood Prosperity Zone programming, that would be the Workforce Navigators. Prosper Portland piloted Cully and Northwest 42nd Avenue programs, and now we work together to serve Jade and Division Midway neighborhoods, as well as the Rosewood Initiative, St. John's, and Park Roads neighborhoods. The Navigators provide one-on-one assistance for job seekers in neighborhoods, providing local access and local information to job seekers. They help participants navigate into the larger system where more supports might be available in different fields, but they also build relationships with employers in those neighborhood prosperity zone areas, and they interact with employers on behalf of job seekers. They have similarly had a very positive year this past year, closely coordinating between the Neighborhood Prosperity Initiative managers and Prosper Portland staff, and providing on-the-ground support in the neighborhoods. The Navigators tailor their approaches to meet unique community needs in those areas. This year, we're excited to partner together and announce that the program will expand to serve culturally specific services to the African American community in Northeast Portland, as well as in East County. Moving on to the youth programs, this is a career coaching model as well. The first 6 organizations listed are similarly culturally embedded organizations who provide career coaching services to youth aged 17 to 24. There's also bridge training providers. Sorry, it's kind of hard to say. Portland Youth Build, Impact Northwest, PCC, and Creating IT Futures create opportunities for training in the targeted industries of construction, IT software, advanced manufacturing, as well as healthcare. So the youth program, oops, sorry, I must skip something.
Oh, no, you're
All right. Did I skip? No, okay, sorry. I did mess up. Go back if you wouldn't mind. So I think I told you about the service providers, but I failed to tell you about the services. Yes, there we go. So this slide lists the primary services of the youth program. Additional services might include things like entrepreneurial training, adult mentoring, post-secondary preparation and support, academic tutoring, mental health, drug and alcohol counseling, as well as financial literacy training. So sorry, I got that a little bit out of order, but what we want to focus on here is that this is 2 years into the next gen program design, and this year we're looking forward to conducting some continuous review and feedback processes to determine what kind of changes could be made to the service offering or what the customers need to see in a different type of outreach or a different type of approach. Okay, now catch me up, please. Thank you. All right, there we go. No, that one. There we go. All right, so you see this was another successful year for the youth program. You're looking at a 73% rate of attaining employment when you kind of do the calculation. But again, you see that it's not a linear in-out kind of program. Instead, people stay in it at different amounts of time and have different backgrounds that they're starting from and things that they're working on while they're in the career coaching program. Okay, now we stick with partnerships here. So I'd like to dig in a little bit on how the funding comes together. So we'd like to make sure we make a point that Work Systems adds nearly $6.4 million in funding to this program from various federal, state, and local sources annually to serve more participants and to enhance the services that they are able to receive. This includes $2.3 million for additional career coaching that serve more participants, sometimes in industry-specific programs, but many times additional career coaching. Almost $500,000 in occupational training support for entry into those high-growth career track occupations that we've mentioned. $2.3 million in work experience and paid internships, both for youth and adult, were paid in the last program year, as well as $1.3 million for rent assistance, childcare, and other supportive services. We're going to dig into that a little bit more. If you add together the funds provided with the other sources leveraged by Work Systems, the total program expense nets up to around $9.3 million and serves many additional customers beyond the 2,400 customers that are served directly for Prosper Portland programs. So here, we'd like to add a little bit more on the reinvestment funds. There were $800,000 in reinvestment funds coming into the program last year from partners that serve SNAP recipients under a USDA SNAP 50/50 program. Of that, just under $200,000 came directly from Prosper Portland's investment in these services, so we'd like to thank you for your important role in stabilizing this investment for those that need it most. Digging in a little bit, okay. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, got it. No, I'm set. So I'm supposed to be doing a spotlight on support services right now. Those pie pieces, slices, add up to $1.7 million that are invested in or leveraged to support services and training. You'll see there that the main supports that you can imagine people need. Rent assistance, there are housing insecure populations that will not be able to complete training or focus on job placement if they didn't have access to eviction prevention or even homeless placement dollars that help support them there. Childcare is also an obvious hurdle for lots of populations, inclusive of low-income populations, really need that support to have childcare, and particularly in different times of the day and things like that. So I want to dig into what that other pie slice is. It's $170,000, but let's know what it is. So it's made up of, it's dwarfed by the training, the rent assistance, and the childcare, but these are really important things like transportation assistance, gas cards, public transportation fares, work clothing, tools, personal expenses, medical, things like that. These are specifically the expenses that can destabilize low-income households enough to abandon long-term plans and get into survival mode decision-making. And that's where we really want to see the supports coming in and wrapping around at the time that they're needed most. So I just wanted to make sure we focused on that. Now we're going to take questions, if there are questions. Although, I overlooked doing something that I thought we were going to do a little bit earlier. My colleagues are here in the back of the room, so I would like to say that I just stood in for Barbara Temper, the youth program manager, and for Jesse Aronson, I almost said the wrong Jesse, the work source program manager. And my boss is here, Patrick Gearing, the chief program officer, as well as the senior program manager who oversees this program, Victoria Lieboff. Okay. So we'd like to take questions.
Yeah, we can go ahead and take questions now, and then we also have testimony as well.
Great, thanks very much. Great presentation. Do we have questions, comments?
Just a couple of quick questions. I was working out some math, and I apologize if I get this wrong, but you were mentioning there's about 2,400 participants through the Prosper Portland networks that come through work systems, but many more outside of that.
Yes.
What's the total number, just kind of roughly ballpark?
I don't want to guess. I don't know.
Do you know what it is for the adult program?
Well, that's what I was like, how do I add all those different numbers? Let's just add the adult program additional served is around the 700 to 800 level, but that's underestimating because there's also the youth additional served.
Got it. So. Okay. I'm wondering also just if of the total people served, where the resources tend to, where you spend the most in terms of resources. I would imagine it would probably be with the youth because of the fact that they're still learning skills, they're still, building a career path. I'm just kind of curious.
That's a good question. I don't know if I can really answer. The combined systems are different sizes, and so I don't want to take a program that's much bigger and compare it to one that's much smaller, but I don't know. I don't want to guess. I don't. I'm covering 3 areas, and so sorry. But we can give you a follow-up answer to that.
That'd be
Those
great.
are good questions.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm just interested in hearing a little bit more about how you reach the next-gen clients. Are you at the schools, or do they come to you? How do they get into the program?
We're going to bring Barb Temper up to answer that question, being that she's the manager of the youth program, so she can provide more in-depth information about how they do outreach with the career coaches.
I would say the youth come from multiple sources. We are starting with youth at age 17 and with the focus on the training and the 4 industry areas that Stacy had already mentioned, we're really capturing youth who have maybe already completed high school or are close to completing high school and are wanting to kind of take that next step. And so the service providers that we contract with that were on the slide are using lots of different resources. If they're associated to an alternative school, they're certainly in the classrooms as students are getting ready to graduate, talking about options and activities. They reach out, we have a homeless youth provider, so they've got lots of youth on the street that are just dropping into their center looking for resources and jobs. So I think it's just a network of many places to try to find youth. We typically don't have, we don't have to do an ad in Craigslist or anything to find youth. They tend to find us or our service providers.
Great.
So that's kind of my follow-up question then is, what's limiting you from serving more youth? Is there excess demand and not enough resources, or are you fully subscribed for the services that you have?
We are fully subscribed for the funding that we have to provide the services. I do believe that if we had additional resources, we could add additional staff at our service providers, which would allow for increase in caseloads of the career coaches.
I think it's also significant to note that we have had some big reductions in WIOA funding, and we do leverage a considerable amount of WIOA dollars. Those are the federal funding dollars to implement these programs. So I think that that's something that we should highlight, and how that may impact our service delivery in future years if the federal funding continues to decline.
I had the same questions that Commissioner Gambetti did, and are we actually turning people away then for lack of funding now, or is it more just there's not quite as much outreach as there would otherwise be? You know what I'm saying?
Excuse me. I believe that our service providers are choosing to, if they don't have capacity in the program, the Next Gen program that we jointly fund, that they are having youth engaged in other types of programming that their agency might be providing. There are, of the agencies listed, we're not the only youth service program or workforce development program that they operate within their agencies, and so they redirect them to other resources that can help to support them until they have the capacity to enroll them into Next Gen.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so can you back it up to the slide on the adult program?
The outcomes?
Yeah. So I'm looking at this and seeing a 93% success on this. That's incredible.
It's a very good year.
Of the 936 served, are there still some of those that are in the system that are going to be graduating? Or,
Oh, yeah.
what's
So the 936 are made up of folks who are in both phases of services, right? So some are in intensive services, but some start at the year in follow-up, and so they will be completing and joining that completed the program number, and then hopefully completing with employment.
Yeah, what's completed, you're 93% at placement.
Right, yeah.
That's great.
We have a lot of supports that are coming in from other funding sources that are helping that to happen, and a lot of support for industry-specific trainings. So that's what's really connecting this up.
Where's the state funding at?
Josie?
I'm looking past you, your
Right,
boss, sorry.
I know. This is a good team effort. Not enough. Right.
Thank you.
All right.
Other questions or comments?
I'm curious for those who complete the program and then are placed in employment, which industries are tracking the most right now?
We did do a look at that. I think we saw between healthcare and construction, we were pretty balanced, but that wasn't a majority when you added those up. There's still a lot of different things that people are going into, you know. I wish I had a little bit more detail on that on the top of my head, but there's, yeah, I won't add. There's kind of other industries ended up being maybe 40, 45% of those placements were in different industries that were a mix.
Thank you.
If I could get some follow-up data on that,
Of
that'd be
course.
great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay. Got a little bit of homework there.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there are no more questions or comments, we have some public testimony, or additional testimony, I should say. Soraya Joshi,
Yes.
I believe, is here. And I apologize if I just mispronounced your name. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Surya Joshi. I am a career coach for EOP program here at ERCO. Unfortunately, one of my customer who was supposed to come and testify could not come because he just graduated from CDL program, and while he's looking for a job, he is continuing his current job as a caregiver. So he could not come because of the shift that he is in. So I am reading his testimony. So let me read it. Good evening, Prosper Portland board members. My name is Jameh Halibe. I am a refugee from Eritrea. I arrived Portland on February 2017. I got support and ESL classes from ERCO after my arrival. Because I was interested in training, I also enrolled with EOP program at ERCO in July 2017. I was a health worker in Eritrea, so I was initially interested in CNA1 training. But I realized that commercial truck driving is a better program for me. My career coach at ERCO worked patiently with me to give me support and advice. I initially got scholarship to train as a CDL in February 2019. The training was fast-paced and I was not able to pass my licensing exam. Then my ERCO career coach, Surya and Alina, so he's also enrolled in a different program at ERCO. Surya and Alina worked harder to get me another training and rent assistance through Ashley at Human Solution. I was finally able to get my CDL license in October 2019. Currently, I am looking for a job in the field. I believe that for a refugee like me, EOP programs are a lifeline to establish ourselves economically in the US. Please keep supporting programs like this so that we can access good career advice and better pathways to provide better future for our children.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, we have one more person to testify, Derek Charlebois. I apologize again if I butchered the name.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming.
So I'm here to speak on behalf of Abdullah. He is at work right now. We were hoping he could make it, but he's running a little late. Abdullah is a youth in our Next Gen program. He first became involved in our program this last June. After getting engaged, he was very motivated to advance in his career options and came interested in exploring construction, but didn't really know a whole lot about it. So we referred him to our construction bridge at PYB, where he was able to shadow different professionals within the industry, work with power tools, and get a feel for the culture of construction, the pace of the work, the punctuality that's required. And he's recently completed that, and he's decided that he's interested in becoming a general laborer. So we've applied for this apprenticeship, and he's currently waiting to get into that and working 2 jobs, saving up some money. Yeah. I think that's about it, yeah.
Well, thank you. Impressive young man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, any additional comments or Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. We really appreciate it and appreciate all the great work that everybody's doing on this. It's fantastic. Any other comments? No? Great. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Next, we have, this is item 9. This is an action item authorizing an amendment to the contract with Livelihood Northwest for the Inclusive Business Resource Network Services. Catherine Kranyak and Amanda Park are here. And Tori.
Yeah.
Also,
Clearly, I'm not
is here.
Catherine.
Yes.
And,
Oh,
and
okay.
Amanda. I just wanted to take a moment to greet everyone in my new position. I actually haven't had a chance to come before the board as the director. So, and I also wanted to go on record just to express my really deep appreciation of the team. You've already heard some of the great work that we've been able to do in partnership with Work Systems, Inc. with regards to workforce. You're getting ready to hear from Catherine and Amanda, who are going to also talk around our Inclusive Business Resource Network and programs around Mercatus, and that'll follow with another program that we are excited to bring on to the Inclusive Business Resource Network to support those businesses that are wanting to get into construction. So I just wanted to highlight that, again, so much of this work requires a true dedication, kind of a commitment to equity and a nimbleness with respects to how they engage with partners. And so I couldn't be more proud of the team. And so no better way than I think to give them the floor to talk with you about their programs and to really show how they engage in this work. And so I just wanted to go on record to say that. So it's good to see you all.
Thank you.
And I will go take my seat.
Yeah, and congratulations on your new role.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Good evening, commissioners and Director Abuab. And my name is Catherine Krajniak. I am a project manager at Prosper Portland.
And I'm Amanda Park, project manager at Prosper Portland.
And we are 2 of a mighty team of 4. So you'll be hearing from Morgan here shortly, and then Nai Zhao, who's also on our team, is in the audience. And we've been under the leadership of Tori Campbell, and soon a new manager you will hear about. So today we're going to focus more on just giving you an update on the Inclusive Business Resource Network and tell you more about Mercatus, which is a program we've had going now for several years. And we do have one action item, which is a resolution to authorize an amendment to the contract with Livelihood Northwest. They have multiple scopes of work, and IBRN is the acronym, so Inclusive Business Resource Network, IBRN, and that contract's over $500,000. So that's your action item for this item. So let's see and get this figured out. There we go. So the IBRN is grounded in the strategic plan goals of prosperity, so prosperity through business ownership and underserved communities, and we do this through our partners. So this program is a network of 17 partner organizations, all funded by Prosper Portland. And in 1819, we actually reached over 1,000 entrepreneurs, 72% people of color, and 58% led by women. And our services are delivered through our network partners, majority of whom are rooted in communities of color. They were all chosen via an RFP in 2017. So last year we came and had you approve the program guidelines, and we reissue an RFP over 5 years. The model that we take for this program is a community of practice model. So this is really important that we have our partners at the table with us, making adjustments, giving input on the program. So we meet monthly. We meet in 5 different committees that help advise us as we're adjusting and looking at the program, looking at the data. We also do 2 different racial equity trainings every year. So it's really important for us that we have a shared language around racial equity and deepen our own coaching tools around culturally responsive coaching. Okay. So the network programs fall into 3 different categories. We have our intensive programs, so those are 30 hours or more a year. And this is where we collect a lot of our client data and outcomes that we'll be showing you here shortly. We served, I believe it was 502 clients in 1819 in these programs. We also have our cultural and geographic navigators. So this is what we say light touch. So this is 10 hours or less a year. And we have both cultural navigators. So we have business advisors and cultural communities that help clients navigate the resources in the network, kind of similar to the workforce navigator model. Then we have geographic navigators, the neighborhood prosperity network areas that provide business advising and navigation. And both of those programs can feed into specialized services. So we have partnerships with, for example, Small Business Legal Clinic, with Metropolitan Family Services for financial counseling. We have a whole range of specialized services that entrepreneurs can then access and get referred to as part of this network. So we thought it would be helpful to walk through with you what a client journey could look like in the network. So our first example is you have a native food entrepreneur, and they have a food product idea. And then they meet the Native American Chamber navigator at an event, and they're still in concept phase. So they both get referred to the legal clinic to get their entity set up, and to NAIA for their intensive culturally specific program. And at NAIA, they get a business coach. Then they go to Hacienda to get really specific food product development expertise. They then go to Livelihood for their bookkeeping programs to get their book set up. They are a vendor at My People's Market, and there they meet a representative from New Seasons, very Portland story here. And then, and then they work with New Seasons to get their product on the shelves. They get sales for about a year, and then they are eligible and get into the Increase Project, which is a growth program. So we thought this would help illustrate a little bit like what a typical client journey might look like. So also we serve tech startups, so a lot of traded sector startups. So in this example, we've got a tech startup founder who has a tech platform for the athletic and outdoor industry, so A&O industry, one of our clusters. So we have a cluster liaison. So in this case, say a Prosper Portland staff person meets them at an event, and then they introduce them to the A&O liaison. They also get into the boot camp. So the TiExcel boot camp is really a great fit for early stage tech founders who want to develop a concept, get a pitch, and kind of get started on their concept. So then they set up their entity, work on their startup, get into the Pi incubator, get to a place where they actually get their fundraising documents together, raise a seed round, and then eventually get into our peer-to-peer program. So this is just to help you see, kind of what that navigation might look like. So on outcomes, when we designed this program, we found it was going to be really important to have a way to talk about outcomes that could really talk about the breadth of the network and really talk about the journey of the entrepreneur. When we put this together, it's really important that we're talking about business growth and we're talking about wealth creation. So you see different stages of the business journey here. The way this is done is at the end of the year, the business advisor takes a bunch of data on what milestones and what achievements the business had that year. They also take jobs, revenue, all of that other data. And then when they meet certain milestones, they get a badge. So they might hit 3 or 4 milestones and get a badge in that category. So what you see here are our total counts up until from the start of the program up until our first quarter in 2019 of how many entrepreneurs reached these badges. If that makes sense. So the 4 badges, the first one, strong and stable, is like a business has the foundations for the business. They have a business license, they're registered, they're getting some revenue, they have some basics in place. Growing businesses is you have efficiencies that could be operating or a product, and they've made some moves in that area. A scaling business is they're going out there and expanding their footprint. So this is like a major investment in expansion. And then we have another category for the traded sector startups, which is a startups that's really kind of gone through that boot camp, gone through an incubator, and started getting their product into the market. So the way we've set up our goals in this is that's a 5-year program. So we know that by year 3, those numbers will likely go up quite a bit because it takes businesses about 3 years to kind of really stabilize. So right now we're on track for the final 3 badges for our year 2 goals, and we're at about 75% for that top line goal. And we're learning a lot from this badge system. So we will have a progress report coming out in January that will take a deeper dive in the data, if any of you are data nerds. And I'm sure we'll have lots of questions about this later. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Amanda to tell you more about Mercatus.
Great. Do you want to do the slides?
Oh,
for me?
yeah.
Okay. So Mercatus is a business directory and storytelling platform. We currently have 524 members listed on the business directory. That's up almost 200 since last year. In the summer of this year, we also rolled out a paid membership option for businesses that are looking to gain more exposure through Mercatus and the communication channels that we use. We had a humble goal of signing 10 businesses up this year, and we have 9 businesses signed up, so we're on track. Also, through the Mercatus platform, underrepresented entrepreneurs share their personal business journey and stories with us. So we have 57 business stories shared in the Mercatus Business Collective. These stories serve to dismantle the dominant narrative of entrepreneurship to one that is inclusive of the vibrant business diversity here in Portland. Also, we completed our 3rd print publication in 1819. Every year we publish the Mercatus magazine. This is a community effort comprised of 10 to 20 creatives of color that come together to provide direction and insight for each volume. The magazine features the full Mercatus directory, business stories, and other topics that are pressing for entrepreneurs of color. The magazines are distributed all year long through Mercatus retail businesses, our city partners, and other stakeholders. So Mercatus impact can be seen in several different ways. The first is through building community. Through events and creative programming, Mercatus brings BIPOC business owners together for mentorship, resource navigation, and business opportunities. We work with those business owners to determine the direction for the events and look for ways to engage our partners and stakeholders in the process. Some of these events include the My People's Market Vendor Dinner, which is a dinner that we hold before every market so that the vendors can come together and connect with each other before the chaos of the market happens. We also host Mercatus Momentous, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And we've just recently launched the Conversations and Connections, where we bring smaller groups of entrepreneurs together to talk about different topics. Also, you'll see Market Connections. Prosper Portland is able to leverage the business directory to encourage partners, both public and private, to rethink procurement and purchasing opportunities at all levels. So this means catering, corporate gifts, professional services, scaling all the way up to institutional purchasing opportunities. And that's come through in different ways through Metro and their 5 different venues, Kaiser, Portland Means Progress, and then, of course, the My People's Market Trade Show, where we had dozens of retail buyers attend. And lastly, Mercatus works to increase exposure for the businesses. Again, we leverage our social media networks to really bring those stories to light. So it's been a busy year. We've expanded quite a few different programs. First, the digital marketing program. In 1819, we piloted that program with 15 participants. We were really excited for 1920 to find funding to support 50 more businesses to participate. This provides them access to up to 4 hours of one-on-one consulting for digital marketing services, plus a small digital marketing grant. We also provide training for the business advisors in the network so that they can increase their knowledge on digital marketing. We've also expanded our tax support program. So in addition to helping businesses file their taxes, we also now have tax consulting one-on-one available for businesses that need the additional support. And like I mentioned earlier, Mercatus Momentous. So this was an event that we launched in 1819, and this was a way to bring Mercatus members together with different Prosper Portland business resources and our Inclusive Business Resource Network partners. And then we also launched funding for a New Leaf project through the City of Portland Cannabis Tax Revenues. And this program is really to assist cannabis entrepreneurs from communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the prohibition of cannabis.
So we have Gavin from Livelihood Northwest, and I believe, should we go ahead and do that first and then have questions?
Sure, why don't we do that? Then we'll have questions after that.
Great.
Sounds good.
Should we just stay here? Yeah.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
your time tonight.
Thank you for coming.
My name is Gavin Devanther. I'm a senior business advisor with Livelihood Northwest, formerly the PSU Business Outreach Program. Our mission is to foster business sustainability and growth for historically underserved entrepreneurs within local communities. We provide exceptional business development support services to promote lifelong learning, empowerment, and positive economic impact. Livelihood Northwest provides business consulting and technical assistance to small business owners, specifically low to moderate income individuals, people of color, women, and the LGBTQ community. We offer professional one-on-one support as well as workshops, trainings, peer-to-peer learning opportunities, and specialty resource referrals. We pride ourselves in a strong relationship-based approach to business support. Last week, we celebrated 25 years of supporting the small business community in Portland, as well as our first year as Livelihood Northwest. The BOP was formed under PSU in 1994 and began our partnership with Prosper Portland, then the PDC, in 1996. In 2019, we formally separated from PSU and rebranded as Livelihood Northwest. Now, in our ongoing partnership with Prosper Portland through the Inclusive Business Resource Network, Livelihood Northwest strives to meet entrepreneurs where they are at in every sense. Our programs are designed to help entrepreneurs develop vital business skills and access the IBRN resources to help them strengthen their business skills as a means to both wealth creation and job creation. With the support of Prosper Portland, we currently offer several programs, including open office hours in East Portland, in partnership with the Rosewood Initiative and the Division Midway Alliance, both Neighborhood Prosperity Network neighborhoods. We provide in-neighborhood, easy access, light touch business support services and network access. Through the Division Transit Project, in partnership with Apano, we help businesses mitigate the negative impacts of transit construction on their businesses. Through our long-term business support program, previously known as the Microenterprise Program, we provide up to 3 years of one-on-one intensive support for committed business owners. And through the Increase Project, this is our executive education and business growth program. We now are serving 2 cohorts a year. 100% participants are people of color with established businesses ready to grow, and the program helps them develop a 3-year strategic growth plan for their existing businesses. And then through a la carte services, we provide many of our services to the rest of the Prosper Portland IBRN network, including our bookkeeping training program, where we provide custom bookkeeping system selection, setup, and training, as well as system consulting for established systems. This also allows us to better support the overall strategic financial planning of a business. In the past year, we have supported over 300 local entrepreneurs. Of those who are receiving our long-term support services, 70% are owned by women, 74% are owned by people of color, and almost 98% are low to moderate income individuals. Through our ongoing partnership with the PSU School of Business, nearly 350 business students have provided additional consulting support to Livelihood Northwest clients. On behalf of Livelihood Northwest, our team, and especially our clients, we thank you for your continued support of this important work and the significant positive impact it has on historically underserved populations within our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, and congratulations on your restructure and rebrand.
Thank you.
Great.
We're very excited. Much less boring.
So do we have questions and comments? No? 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 Okay. Wow. All right. Well, that was a great presentation, and I do have one question. So how's the pipeline going for the IBRN? Like, how are I mean, you mentioned that you thought numbers would shift around as we go further into the 5-year process. It's kind of a 5-year window, and we're at year 2, 3, somewhere in there. What do you foresee coming down the pipeline?
Funny you should mention that. We've been talking about that. We, when we put this program together, we never done it before like this, and so we started making some assumptions, and we had to, we're now looking at the data and testing our assumptions. we thought initially that the light touch would be a feeder into the long term, and then that would be, you know, somewhat of a linear path. And we're realizing it's not so much that there's a lot of jumping around, and that, I mean, over 1,000, you know, what we're seeing is folks are probably getting maybe 5 hours a year rather than 10, so we're getting more clients than we thought, and they're getting a lot more, they're kind of coming in, get what they need, and move on. So that's great that we're serving a lot of people, but now what we're trying to think about is how do we think about outcomes for those lighter touch clients, because we're only going to be able to serve so many in the intensive programs. So it's a little tricky because some of our intensive programs are 3-year, some are 1 year, and so we've had some partners that have expanded. Pi is soon going to be having about 20, like 30 companies or so in this program, where they were like 12. So some folks are expanding and it's changing every year. But I think for us, we're kind of looking at the data and thinking about the outcomes a little bit differently now. It's a work in progress. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I think another thing with pipeline is that one of our assumptions was that to get to strong and stable or some of these outcomes, most of those businesses would come from our long-term programs. And what we found is that there are plenty of businesses that don't need long-term support but do need support and could potentially be reaching the outcomes. And the way that we built the data system doesn't necessarily capture that. So it's another learning for us and kind of reevaluating for the next round.
We'll have to tweak our tracking a little bit to fit the circumstances. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Yeah.
Sorry, I had a couple more questions. First, with respect to the businesses that have scaled their operations, you mentioned that the qualification is that they're investing in their growth, right? And so is the investment their own investment, or it's account external funds, banks,
it could be any of the
investors,
above.
anything?
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, I'm just thinking of who might be in that list. I haven't actually looked at that list of 6, which I should have, but raised venture capital, increased employees, probably have added another location. So yeah, so it can be their own dollars, but in a lot of cases they probably got outside capital to do that.
Okay. And of those 6, how many are in the traded sector?
I do not have the 6 in front of me, but
Okay.
I can follow up and let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Question.
And then I'm curious to follow up on your comment about the lighter touch clients. Are there any services that you see being used more often than others in terms of that light touch? Is it accounting services? Is it system reconfigurations? Is it marketing? I'm curious to find out.
We are always at capacity on our legal services.
Legal,
That's a huge one for us. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what else.
I think there's definitely a demand for, especially when we're talking about some of the service-oriented businesses or business models that are not traditional, where they're looking for one-on-one business coaching and specialty support that's outside of the network, and it's hard to program for that. But there's definitely a huge demand for that.
On those two subjects, legal services and business coaching and mentoring, those sometimes come through pro bono work from, lawyers, and also, business mentors who may have some time on their hand and within a specific category or industry, have some expertise that they wish to lend. I'm curious, are we working upstream in identifying some of those? They're not directly service providers, right? They're not in the business, but they could be willing to volunteer some time in that direction. So I'm curious about that, because that's an area of volunteership that I think we could help promote a little bit.
Well, SBLC is a pro bono. I mean, that's what they do.
Yeah,
So they
right.
facilitate that.
Yeah.
And we do have several programs. So both Thai and Pi. I know it's confusing. Their names rhyme. So both of those startup programs have pretty extensive network of mentors. So Thai has their charter members, Pi has like 300 mentors. So that's really the bread and butter of how and that's mainly traded sector entrepreneurs.
Right.
NAIA actually has a new program, not funded by us, but that they are starting to use some more mentorship for a growth program they're doing. I believe Increase uses some mentorship. So the pro bono we do have some programs for that, but
Yeah.
it's a lot, it's work and it's labor, so
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have had a lot of kind of discussions around making sure that folks are doing mentorship programs that really help, and that we're kind of, that's a lot of sort of our cross, kind of best practices that we share with each other. And I know that, for example, one thing, and Gavin didn't mention this, Gavin's really mentored a lot of new business advisors in IBRN in other organizations. And so I think what we're seeing now is that people are kind of teaching each other, even though they're not in the same organization. So when NAIA launched this new incubator that actually has federal funding, they got some mentorship from PI and from others who do mentorship programs. So yes and yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's my answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious anywhere we can figure out how to, if you're saying this legal services are always at capacity, business coaching is in high demand, right? At ways in which to help facilitate some kind of expansion of that, especially in areas where legal services, obviously that's a highly specialized area. And so I'm wondering again, different ways we can do that. Because I know there are fairly limited services that I've had to tap from time to time, and then you just have to spend the dollars, right, later, and just hiring attorneys. And that can be outside the scope of, for a lot of newer businesses and startups, particularly those for low and moderate income folks. So anyways, I'm curious to figure out ways in which to increase that.
Yeah, I mean, I just, as a business lawyer, I don't know that I don't know of a ton of resources other than the Small Business Legal Clinic. That's probably the main one that I know about. There's other pro bono providers, but for other types of legal services in other contexts, not so much for small businesses. There might be something through the bar. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have explored that. Or through the Multnomah, the Multnomah Bar Association, as opposed to Oregon State Bar, for example. There might be something, but honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's staff time and organizing the pro bono. It's why we're a little silent over here. That takes a lot, and so a lot of the funding that you have to go is putting in the staff time to organize that, make sure there's a good client experience, and so there's also Commons Law Center. So but SBLC does a great job, but it's a matter of having enough funding for them to increase their client load. If we had more funding, we would be able to increase the client load.
Yeah, I just don't know that there's a lot of other people to refer folks to.
That's what
You know what I mean? Yeah, right. So, yeah, it's a gap, no question. Any other comments? No? Okay. All right. Okay, then, we'll go ahead and vote on this resolution authorizing the First Amendment to the subrecipient contract with Livelihood Northwest to implement a portion of the Inclusive Business Resource Network during fiscal year 2019 to 2020. That's resolution number 7347. Would someone like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, motion's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Okay, now we have item 10. This is, hold on one moment. So this is an action item authorizing an intergovernmental agreement to administer the Community Opportunities and Enhancement Project. Morgan Masterson will present. Welcome, Morgan.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Cruz, Commissioners, and Director Abwaf. We had to scramble this morning. How do we talk to Director Abwaf? We don't say that very often. So we're all kind of giggling. Director Abwaf. Okay. My name is Morgan Masterman. I'm a program manager on the Entrepreneurship and Community Economic Development team at Prosper Portland. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge one of our partners is with us here this evening, Kathy Sherrick. She is the COEP program manager at the Office of Management and Finance, and my partner in crime for this program. Tonight, I am excited to provide an update on the Community Opportunities and Enhancements Program. But before I begin, I want to ground us in Prosper's role in this program. Our role here is really to implement a service delivery program on behalf of the city. While construction equity is prioritized in Prosper's own development projects, that is not the focus of this project, of this program. It is really about building a pipeline to increase diversity and equity in construction citywide. Through a series of service delivery contracts, the program intends to fund business technical assistance and workforce assistance for people of color in the construction trades. Along with a general update, I will provide an overview of terms of a draft intergovernmental agreement with the City of Portland's Office of Management and Finance and Office of Equity and Human Rights, which outlines the roles and responsibilities of each organization in implementing the COEP. This IGA is slated to go to City Council in December. Additionally, the Portland Housing Bureau has offered to contribute approximately $300,000 from their Portland Housing Bond to the COEP effort to support PHB's construction equity goals. This funding would be combined with the COEP funding offered through a competitive solicitation process. Tonight, I'm requesting that you authorize Executive Director Branham to execute the IGA with the city, as well as take necessary actions to accept funds from PHB, which we are in the process of determining a proper mechanism for. And finally, I'm asking that you authorize staff to begin developing a program and implementation plan for the COEP, including stakeholder engagement and a transparent and competitive grant solicitation process. The Community Opportunities and Enhancements Program supports Prosper Portland's work toward building an equitable economy through 3 strategic plan objectives: jobs, prosperity, and partnerships. The workforce assistance component of the COEP aims to connect communities of color with high-paying jobs in the construction industry. The business technical assistance component aims to support wealth creation for diverse entrepreneurs in the construction industry. And in order to achieve these outcomes, we must work collaboratively with our partners, who include multiple city bureaus, our regional workforce board, who you heard from this evening, Work Systems, Inc., and numerous community partners rooted in communities of color. Before I jump into the IGA terms, I wanted to provide you with a brief history of Portland's construction equity efforts. Don't worry, I'm not going to go back to 2009, but I do want to flag a couple of important elements that have happened over the last 10 years. In 2012, City Council piloted a community benefits agreement on 2 Water Bureau projects. In 2016, those pilot projects were completed and the CBA process was assessed. City and industry stakeholders agreed that making funding available to support equity efforts on a project-by-project basis was inefficient for city bureaus distributing the funds and for community organizations who were applying for multiple grants and reporting to multiple bureaus. In 2017, Council, in order to address the inefficiencies of the project-by-project approach, Council directed staff to create the Community Opportunities and Enhancements Program and Fund, which would collect 1% from all city-owned construction projects. In 2018, the city released a request for applications to utilize funds previously collected from 3 projects: the Portland Building Reconstruction, the M Hill Garage, and Washington Park Reservoir. During that RFA process, the city received feedback from the community that additional programmatic planning was needed. This feedback encouraged the city to put a hold on the grant award process. Also last year, a regional construction workforce market study was released, showing a shortage in supply of workers of color and women over the next 5 years, for planned projects over the next 5 years. At the same time, Metro has convened stakeholders through the Construction Careers Pathway Project, C2P2, which I know some of you are familiar with, to identify regional construction equity strategies. You heard about that last month, actually, from our colleague John Cardenas. And finally, this year, earlier in 2019, we incorporated feedback from that 2018 RFA process, and in recognition of Prosper's extensive experience delivering complex equity-based economic development programming, the City of Portland entered into a memorandum of understanding with Prosper to develop and implement the COEP grant program. So some key terms that I want to flag for you in the draft IGA. The proposed term of the IGA is 1.5 years. This will give us enough time to go through a competitive grants process and issue initial grants for 1 year. At that time, we'll be able to assess and modify terms as necessary and mutually agreed on with the city. The IGA references the COEP fund as 1% of hard construction costs on all city-owned public improvement contracts. However, I want to flag that details of the fund collection and the budget process are outlined in the administrative rules, which OMF is drafting and will be approved by City Council. The IGA outlines initial funding of approximately $2.25 million, which was previously collected from those 3 projects earlier. About half of this is comprised of ratepayer funding, which will not be included in the initial round of grant funding, as the city is working to get clarity on eligible activities. The IGA also outlines an initial split of funding, such that 75% of the grant funding would go to support workforce assistance and 25% would support business technical assistance. There is a Community Equity and Inclusion Committee, CEIC, that was formed to advise the city on construction projects between $10 and $25 million, and they will be able to make recommendations on further funding priorities, which might modify the split in the future. The IGA provides detail on roles and responsibilities of the three parties. OMF's roles include developing the annual budget, coordinating with the infrastructure bureaus and providing project forecasts, managing the Community Equity and Inclusion Committee, working with the City Attorney's Office to further define ratepayer fund eligible activities, and monitoring the IGA and Prosper's performance. The role of the Office of Equity and Human Rights is to provide technical assistance to OMF, Prosper Portland, and the CEIC, applying an equity lens throughout the program development and implementation to ensure that the program meets its equity objectives. And finally, Prosper's role includes developing the grant program, including a stakeholder engagement process, leading a transparent solicitation process, implementing and monitoring grant agreements with service providers, including a grant to Work Systems, Inc., who will manage the workforce assistance program portion of this program, and collecting and synthesizing outcomes data for the city. The COEP has 2 main goals: supporting people of color and women in the trades, and supporting the success and growth of minority women and disadvantaged business enterprises, or MWDBE. Over the last 5 years, through the efforts that I previously mentioned, there's been substantial stakeholder outreach, focus groups, and reporting related to construction workforce and business support. We commit to continue learning from the expertise of community and construction stakeholders and recognize that the community expects us to act on what we've learned and deploy resources. In recognition that many stakeholders have already provided substantial feedback and the community has been patiently anticipating the release of these resources, the COEP program will rely heavily on the information provided in these reports while providing still an ongoing opportunity for feedback and improvement. At a high level, these reports identified transparent and consistent long-term investment will help workers and businesses stay engaged and expand their capacity to participate on future projects. Technical assistance would help MWDBE subcontractors to be more successful. Investments are needed to retain people of color and women in the trades, and additional pre-apprenticeship training program capacity is needed to meet the 5-year demand. So aligned with these recommendations, possible activities funded through the COEP grants program could include bidding and estimating support for contractors, training on city software and procedures, removal of barriers to training participation such as transportation and childcare. We saw that funding from the workforce slides. Increased capacity of certified pre-apprenticeship training programs, and efforts to improve job site culture, training around job site culture. These activities would be further defined through our stakeholder engagement process. Okay, I want to kind of walk you through how the program will operate because there are a lot of players. The city will collect funds from infrastructure bureaus to develop annual budgets for the program. Funds are provided to Prosper Portland through this IGA. One of the reasons why Prosper was asked to implement this program is because we have capacity and expertise in delivering business technical assistance programs, as you just heard from my colleagues Catherine and Amanda about our Inclusive Business Resource Network. Similar to how we manage our other city workforce development investments, which you also heard it just recently, we'll be subcontracting with WSI because of their expertise in delivering workforce development programming. Collectively, through our existing programs, Work Systems and Prosper have built relationships and networks which we convene regularly through a community of practice. We have systems in place, and by utilizing these existing programs, we can recognize economies of scale. In addition, our strong partnerships means we'll be able to deliver more meaningful services. So working collaboratively with WSI and our city partners, we will issue a competitive request for proposals in order to select workforce and business technical assistance service providers. We are committed to funding service providers rooted in communities of color. As service providers deliver services, they will be required to provide Prosper they'll be required to collect meaningful data, and they'll provide that data to us on a quarterly basis. This is similar to how we already are working with our service providers through Work Systems and through our IBRN programming. And then finally, Prosper will compile this information into annual program report for the city. Hopefully that graphic was helpful. In terms of next steps, with your authorization this evening, we would begin program development and stakeholder engagement right away. Hopefully, moving forward with some of the activities that have already been described in these multiple reports that have come out over the last 5 years. We're heading to City Council in December. Kathy and others will be taking multiple documents for City Council to approve, including the IGA, administrative rules, and city code language. In January, we will likely enter into a contract with Work Systems, Inc., and together we would issue a request for proposals in early 2020, with anticipating that around May or June, we would execute grant contracts with our service providers and services would be available to the community. That's all I have for you today.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, then, we'll go ahead and vote on this resolution. This is resolution number, 7348. Would someone like to make a motion? I won't bother to read the title. Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. All right, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so.
That goes with the regular plan.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so our next item is number 11. This is an action item approving guidelines for the revenue-based financing and creating opportunity loan programs. Mr. K. Little will present.
Okay, perfect.
Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Cruz, Commissioners, Director Aboif. Here to talk to you about the new loan programs, revenue-based financing program, and one that we call the Creating Opportunity Loan Program. We're going to talk a little bit about how we arrived at the creation of these programs and what they were created for, as well as some of the features of the programs. A year ago, we convened a group of both conventional and alternative lenders, technical assistance providers, some community members and others to really try to assess where gaps were in the market in the area of business financing. At Prosper Portland, we could see that there were access to capital issues, especially amongst small businesses and also within for our cluster industries that we wanted to serve. So we really wanted to understand kind of where those gaps were. So we did a brainstorming session last October with this group to try to answer that question, and also just looked at some of those different industries, like some of the cluster firms, to see where the gaps were there. We looked at our own loan products and where we maybe weren't able to actually meet the needs of businesses in our area. And then we also took a look at some of the social impact investing and lending that's happening not only here locally, but also around the country to kind of get a sense of different types of financing tools that were available. And so what did we learn from this? Well, we saw, one, that there were different needs for different businesses. One thing that was true across the board is that most businesses had a need for working capital, also needed to be able to buy equipment, and especially businesses that were perhaps newer, not bankable. I mean, clearly that's a real problem, and also those that didn't have access to friends and family money. So we wanted to try to figure out how to fill that gap. So we created 2 loan products. The first one is called a revenue-based financing loan program. Revenue-based financing is used a lot in like the tech industry, and it's really geared toward companies that they're generating revenues, but those revenues are really kind of erratic, not very predictable, and so they need something where they don't have to worry about having a regular debt service payment that they have to manage all the time. It gives them some flexibility. Their payment will be higher when their revenues are higher, they're lower when their revenues are lower. So that really gives a company a lot more flexibility. So with this program, the loans can be up to $250,000. There is no requirement for the borrowers to provide real estate as far as collateral. We'll do a blanket UCC filing. If they do provide real estate for financing, then that would, we could perhaps give them a lower rate. Revenue-based financing is structured a little differently in that it doesn't have an interest rate, but it uses a return multiple to try to figure out what that actual repayment would be. So for example, if it had a return multiple of 1.5 times, if they borrowed $100,000, they'd have to pay back $150,000. And so they would do that within that term of that 5 years, which is what we structured on this loan program. We've also put in another feature, since this is really geared toward traded sector companies, and one thing that we see with the traded sector companies in the city of Portland is that many of them are really lacking in diversity. And so the question is, how can we perhaps encourage companies to really look at that internally in a way to maybe change that culture? Of course, there's no way that we could say you have to hire so many people of color, but we also were concerned about the culture itself, that folks that would work there would feel comfortable there, and so that retention would be something that we would see reflected. So what we built into this loan program is that for businesses that did that actual culture change work, they did that diversity, inclusion, and equity work at the firm, starting with the CEO or owner of the company and including up to 85% of the employees. If they did that work, then they could receive forgiveness of up to 10% of Prosper Portland's earned income for that loan program. The second program is the Creating Opportunity Loan Program, and this one is for companies that have much more kind of stable and predictable revenue, still not quite bankable, but they have more predictable income streams. So this loan actually has your typical principal and interest payments, also loans up to $250,000, flexible collateral requirement. Some features here that would make it really attractive is that there's no minimum time in business requirement, even though we'd want to see that they actually are generating revenues that are recurring and that we can understand how they're going to continue to scale that business. This one also has that feature of encouraging equity work by providing, because it is a typical principal and interest type payment, we could actually provide an interest rate reduction of up to 5% if they engage in that equity work. So we really wanted to get some feedback on that piece of it and just trying to figure out how can we ensure things like, one, how can we structure this program to encourage businesses to actually participate in it, but then to make sure that it didn't create additional harm for the folks who perhaps were hired to work there. So we worked really closely with the Council for Economic and Racial Equity and kind of unwrapping that part and really trying to understand how to put the equity piece together. They were actually really instrumental in coming up with one, answering just some of the questions that came up. For example, how would equity practitioners really work with the businesses? How would we connect them to the businesses? And what would that actually look like? And so, how would we ensure, for example, that because this loan program is not limited just to white-owned companies, how would companies that were owned by people of color see themselves as being recipients of this loan program? And especially in just the language that we used around it. And then also, how do we ensure that when folks are hired by these companies, perhaps as a result of going through this work, that they're not just being hired into these lower tier jobs that maybe don't pay a decent wage. So we wanted to really ensure that these things were considered. And Siri was really helpful in making sure to bring those kinds of questions to the forefront. And I worked with them for a subcommittee of the group for a few months. As a matter of fact, that work is still ongoing. And I really appreciated all the feedback and the thoughtful comments and suggestions that came from them. And we'll hear from Robin Wang, who was engaged in that group with us here in just a few minutes. So this would actually now it's got kind of a continuum of the loan programs that we have. We came to you in June for the Thriving Small Business Loan Program, which was for those early startup businesses, smaller loans up to about $50,000. But now this allows us to provide financing to the trade sector companies, along with the equity feature that we hope that folks will engage in that work. It's not a requirement for them to do so. They don't have to, but we do hope that they actually decide that they would like to go through that process with us. And so what the plan is that here for the first year, we'll really try to just assess what kind of loan production that we have. We've already have some interest expressed in the loan from conversations that we've had with folks out there in the community. So we'll really be tracking that, as well as how many people are actually engaging in the equity-related work and kind of how that's going. We're still kind of framing up that work right now so that we can ensure that, for example, perhaps we'll create a toolkit and other things to make that process much easier for them. So we'll really be tracking that as we go forward. And then this pilot will last for 2 years, and if it's successful, we'll return to the board and try to get approval for a permanent program. So would you like to answer questions now, or ask questions, or would you like to hear from Robin Wang first?
Why don't we go ahead and hear from Mr. Wang first, and then we'll maybe have a few questions or comments after that.
Okay.
Is that
Next to you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you. Is that fine? So thank you. My name is Robin Wang, and I am a member of SIRI. I assume that you folks are familiar with SIRI. And we were pleased and honored to be engaged by Kay and his team to provide feedback on these new 2 loan programs. And so I said, a couple months ago, he approached us, said they're rolling out new programs and wanted our feedback. And we met in both a small group committee. I was on a subcommittee that was focused on loan products, and then we also met as a full committee, maybe about 10 to 15 people on the council, and we had an opportunity to engage with Kay and his team and provide feedback on these programs. And the conversations were frank, they were direct, they were informative, and I think Kay spent a lot of time explaining to us the background, the incentives, and what, why they were doing these programs. And we're pleased to say that, in a few slides earlier, he had 4 or 5 bullet points of some of the feedback that we provided, and that hit the nail on the head. I mean, once we heard the feedback once we heard the program, we gave them the feedback, and in the ensuing weeks, gave them more clarity, and we're pleased to see that those 4 or 5 points, and a few other more subtle ones, were incorporated into the program. So we're glad to have that voice on the table, at the table. That said, I think it's also important to stress that these 2 programs are not intended to increase accessibility of capital to entrepreneurs of color. And that was made very clear to us in the very beginning, and we wished we had the opportunity. We understand that the Thriving Small Business Program is more geared towards, providing that access to capital, but the stars didn't align themselves and we didn't have that opportunity. So we're hopeful that this program will achieve the equity work that's needed in the traded sector businesses that are targeted here. And we are hopeful that we can continue this dialogue. We look forward to seeing the rollout and implementation of this program and providing continued feedback. But we're also hopeful to continue providing feedback to some of the other loan programs so that we can improve the accessibility of capital to entrepreneurs of color. So we thank you for the opportunity. We thank Kay and his team for their diligence in listening to us, and we just really hope to continue this conversation for other initiatives, whether it's this or other plans and programs that Prosper Portland may have. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for coming tonight. Comments, questions? Anybody? No?
Yeah, I guess either for Kay or Robin, what does success look like in the next year or two with this program?
Well, for me, I'd like to see, one, increased loan production to traded sector companies. That's something that we hadn't really been able to do with our current loan programs. But I would really like to see, hopefully all of the companies that borrow money from us from these programs, but at least the majority of them, actually engage in that work. I think it'll be interesting, as we're still kind of tweaking that, because I think that there's going to be a lot of learning kind of going along with that, just to see what things are kind of working and what things aren't. But I hope that we have folks who are eager to dive into it with us, and that then results in more diversity at some of these firms, or they're doing business with more companies that are owned by people of color, or creating internship opportunities for disadvantaged youth. You really see that companies are really embracing what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? No?
One more, sorry.
Yeah.
The Thriving Small Business Loan Program, so what's the status of that? And
so we got approval for that in June, and matter of fact, we just approved a loan request, the first loan request for that Thriving Small Business Program about 2 weeks ago, and we have a few others in the pipeline. So
we had received some feedback, and you and I participated in some exchanges with one of our partners who felt like we were sort of competing with them almost in providing some of these products. Has that sentiment continued, or how is that? Have we had more feedback along those lines, or have we addressed their concerns?
do you mean about these programs specifically?
Yes, well, and the Thriving Small Business Program, that's what prompted it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you recall.
I didn't get any more feedback about that program. Matter of fact, that lender actually referred some borrowers to us. So, so that, I guess we'll see how that goes. I have not received any feedback from any lenders regarding this program and feeling like it was a competitive threat. Matter of fact, I had an opportunity to talk to the head loan officer over at Business Oregon. They also have a revenue-based financing program. And matter of fact, he met with me to talk a little bit about their programs and some of the things that were working and that weren't working. And his sentiment was that, the more types of financing that you had out there in the market, the better. So, I haven't received any other negative kind of feedback
More the
since then.
merrier. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Other comments? Okay, great work. Thank you very much for your presentation. All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve resolution number 7349?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, resolution is passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, we are on to item number 12. This is adopting budget amendment number 2 for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 and ending June 30, 2020, and making appropriations. And, this is the best part of the evening, and nobody stayed or very few people have stayed for Tony's presentation. I'm disappointed that we love you though, Tony. We do, and we're glad you're here, and we appreciate it.
Well, good evening, Chair Cruz, Commissioners, and Director Abroff. Tony Barnes, Finance Manager, Prosper Portland. I'll be presenting Resolution 7350, which is to formally amend the budget for fiscal year 1920 for the second time this fiscal year. Several months ago, we had a minor amendment in one district to appropriate additional dollars for a couple infrastructure projects. This is a more comprehensive amendment that addresses where we're at in the fiscal year and establishing project and program appropriations based on a lot of intensive work truing up the budget, looking at progress and what our resources are. So on that, we've updated forecasts based on revised resources. We've made a lot of updates to specific projects and programs, Old Town Chinatown programming, PIP and Community Livability Grant carryover from last year, as well as business lending dollars. Administration, we've made a couple changes, recommended changes around reclassification of staff charges from administration to more specific activities that staff are working on, where the dollars are in property redevelopment, economic development activities. We've also recommended including dollars for the office move, portion of the costs that would be incurred this fiscal year. And then also the Portland Housing Bureau adjustments, excuse me, working closely with PHB on their estimates for the current fiscal year. There was dollars left over from last year they needed incorporated. Update on the process. As usual, we've had the budget adopted in June, approved by council and adopted by the board. And we've been working on truing up the budget, recognizing our actual balances and project and program timing, and preparing the revision. And this is possible now that we have an audited financial statement for last fiscal year. We know what the actual resources and expenditures were for last year that we can recognize in this year. And this is very critical to really inform what we put into the draft budget as we start drafting the budget for 2021 that we've been working on, just starting to work on, and we'll be working on intensively over the next couple months, and we'll present to you for the first time in January. At a high level, the resources included in the revision, the biggest change is to beginning fund balance. It recognizes an additional $64 million based on actual ending balances from last fiscal year. The primary drivers for those changes include about $26 million in housing set-aside funds that were not spent as of the end of the fiscal year, about $30 million in programmatic funds that weren't spent, largely in Old Town, Chinatown, Action Plan, and Northeast CDI funds. They'll be rolling over, not necessarily into this fiscal year, but more over the next couple of years, and we'll take a look at that as we get into the budget process, the timing of those resources. But also about $5.8 million for finalizing the construction of the Convention Center Hotel garage. That wasn't quite finished by June 30th, so we're recognizing that in July and August, wrapping it up. There's also a couple other large changes. We're truing up interest, cash interest, based on revised interest rate forecasts for the cash that we hold, as well as the balances, higher balances that we have. So it's a pretty significant increase of around $2.3 million. Also, $6.6 million in additional TIF debt proceeds. That represents the final maximum indebtedness in the Lentz district that we would have to issue at June 30th before the district closes out for the last date to issue debt. So that's being recognized here so that we know, what would be in that final bond sale. And then finally, property income, we actually have a decrease. This is based off of an older true-up related to property in Lentz. We received an updated appraisal on a property, and we wanted to recognize a lower appraisal than what we had for that property, for the disposition of the property. So in total, resources go up a net $71 million. On the expenditure side, total appropriations are actually decreased by a net $9.5 million. So there's increases being recommended a couple different areas across different funding sources and different categories of expenditures, but the overall net decrease is really being driven by some of those larger property redevelopment placeholders that we had in the budget, mainly around the Old Town Chinatown Action Plan, that while there's significant activity and action and pre-development on a number of projects in the area, the actual capital dollars for those probably won't go into investment by June 30th. So those would be into the draft 2021 budget, which the sum of all those changes results in a contingency increase of $80 million. So if there is a need to access those resources by the end of the fiscal year, we would bring forward an additional budget amendment to request to draw those resources out of contingency. Otherwise, they'd roll over into the following fiscal year. So a few more notes on some of those changes. Administration, a net decrease of $75,000 includes reforecast of personnel services and staff around $200,000, and actually reclassifying how staff are spending time on projects. So a $700,000 decrease from administration into projects like a Broadway corridor or ODOT blocks or business lending in different districts, where we're actually, based on the first couple months of the fiscal year, identify where staff are being focused on spending time and making sure those budgets true up. And then finally, we actually have some increases in administration, incorporating the office move expense, as well as other net changes. We have some debt administration with our partnership with the Office of Management of Finance to actually increase that contract so that there's a transition in personnel that can be covered, so that debt issuances and management of our debt is handled appropriately over time. In economic development, there's a net increase of about $1.2 million. This includes the inclusion of the Communities, Opportunities, and Enhancements Program Fund. Per state budget law, we actually have to establish, per this revision, a new fund to account for those resources and expenditures that would occur out of that. So with that intergovernmental agreement that is moving forward, we're establishing a fund here and appropriations to recognize those resources and expenditures. We're also appropriating additional resources in business lending, mainly in the EDA, the Economic Development Administration Fund, and the Airport Way Fund for loans that are in the pipeline and moving forward that we did not have in the adopted budget. And again, I mentioned the reclassification or recategorization of personnel from administration. Some of it's being added here in economic development to carry out these activities. Under infrastructure, the net increase is about $2.1 million across funds. It takes out the appropriation for the Gateway Halsey Street improvements because that occurred actually last fiscal year, so we didn't actually need it in this budget since it was funded last year. It increases funding $2.5 million for the Earl Blumenauer pedestrian bridge and carryover for Union Station and Lombard improvements that have been ongoing projects. And a note on that, these infrastructure increases, as well as the infrastructure increases that we had in the first budget amendment, we took a pretty good look at the grants and infrastructure budget as it relates to the financial sustainability plan to determine if we're still within the limits, because there's some reappropriation from our mission-related and program-related investments. Right now, while we're spending at a higher rate for grants and infrastructure, it's still within the overall allocation and within the allocation of the 5-year budget and financial sustainability plan. But it's something we're going to have to monitor closely, and we look forward to bringing more on that to you during the board retreat on the status of the financial sustainability plan. And finally, the last slide discusses property redevelopment, where the big net decreases in the budget for the current year, mainly around Old Town Chinatown investment, moves out over $30 million of investment that was in the adopted budget. So we likely will see a good portion of that reappropriated in the 2021 draft budget and perhaps in the 21-22 budget in the forecast. Also the increases in the budget here, to offset that, are carryover for the PIP grant and Community Livability Grant Program for ongoing grant dollars. And I mentioned before, pre-development activities for Old Town Chinatown. So although we're decreasing the majority of the budget, there are specific allocations going forward on very specific projects for pre-development activities. And as well as, again, the personnel reclassifications. Almost $500,000 from administration is moving to property redevelopment based on where staff are spending time implementing these projects. And so that's across all the different funding sources. So with that high-level overview of the budget that summarizes everything in Exhibit A of the resolution, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Nope. No? As always, very thorough, and yeah, well done. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. I would accept a motion to approve resolution number 7350.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Resolution is passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. There being no further items on the agenda, the Prosper Portland Board of Commissioners meeting is now adjourned. Thanks for coming.